Okay, so here अपन लोग methods and operators पे करे थे. But right now this is exactly what we are going to be doing in methods and operators. I will try to take it as slow as possible. Um, but let's go over this. So I'm gonna make a new file here. Things to learn. Essentially, so far we've learned some things already, but so let's get started here. First of all, we've learned the data types already, the variables basics already. So we can get started with methods and operators. Okay. Um, you will. So today we're gonna get started on methods and operators. Methods and operators के बाद अपने पास modules का रहता. Modules के बाद अपने को basic functions रहते, फिर basic classes रहते, फिर advanced functions रहते, फिर advanced classes रहते, फिर उसके बाद after advanced classes we will move on to some mini projects, and after the mini projects अपने को um, started machine learning, and then after machine learning you're going to learn while doing machine learning you're going to learn the following modules such as pandas, numpy, these pandas, numpy, keras, tensorflow, and scikit-learn, matplotlib, seaborn, stuff like that. So essentially this is what we are going to follow. We are currently in this state. Here we have stuff like this. That's fine. Okay. So we have methods and operators. And currently we are doing this. In the modules, we will learn random, um, turtle. We will learn pygame, tkinter, tkinter. We're just gonna do basics. We're also gonna start basic numpy, and we're also going to start um, some basic what do you call it? So it's random, turtle, pygame, tkinter, time, and we're gonna mess with Flask for a while as well. Okay. With that said, we can get started on if statements. So you can come down here. If statement is basically the cornerstone of logic. Cornerstone bole to, essentially, in your if statement, it's basically a gate, okay? Essentially, if something passes the check, the gate opens. Otherwise, the gate stays closed, okay? So the entire point of using an if statement is so we can check if two values align. So if we use, suppose, we check, essentially if we want to check if someone's age is more than 18, okay, you can write a prompt here. Age is more than 18, okay? then we can do some like logic here. Okay, so if we have a variable, so suppose I create a variable, this is 12 for now. Okay, and essentially what you do here is you would say something like, okay, you could say something like, if age is greater than or equal to 18, print you are an adult. Since our age is less than 18, it will only print nothing. It will print nothing. If I did 18, exactly 18, it will say you're an adult. 18J, you cannot support that. But if you did 18J here as well, you still cannot do that. Complexes are weird, they're barely used. So you are an adult, okay? And if I did, so we could do stuff like that, okay? That's not the only things we can do, but that's some of the things we can do. Here, this is a new method. अपन लोग हमेशा in print बोल के एक चीज़ यूज़ कर रहे थे. Print basically gives us output. लेकिन अगर अपने को user से input लेना है from the terminal, we can just say an input function, parenthesis, and then after your parenthesis, inside of the parenthesis, you need to put in a quote, which is going to be a prompt. So it's now asking me what my age is. Prompt के ending में, no matter what the circumstance, always put a space. Okay, so if I do like 20, nothing will happen right now because we added that code. लेकिन अपन लोग value लिख सकते, and then it won't continue until we write something there. So that's good. Okay, so age. We can say, we can make a program for the weather, and then we can ask for the weather. Okay, and essentially we can say tab, if the weather is okay. Usually, okay, so this is something everyone needs to understand. Okay. And perfect. Okay. So essentially, what I want everyone to understand here is input का जो भी input लिखते हैं अपन लोग, even if we write a number, is going to be stored as a string. Okay. So here you have to cast it. Okay, you have to cast the type from a string into an integer, so that जो भी अपन लोग type लिखे, it will be stored as an integer, and we can do the integer methods on it. Okay, so if I run that, yes,
एक्सक्यूज मी सॉरी, आप उर्दू में जो एक्सप्लेन कर रहे थे ना, सही एक्सप्लेन कर रहे थे, तो उर्दू में ही करो आप एक्सप्लेन. अच्छा दिख रहा, वो समझ में आ रहा अपनी लैंग्वेज में.
ठीक है. तो essentially क्या है बोल के बोले तो, जो अपन लोग एक weather बोल के एक variable initialize करें, ये input function ये करता कि essentially जब अपना print function कुछ output करता, input function कुछ अंदर लेता. Okay, we need to यहाँ पर cast करना रहता अपने को type from string to integer. क्यों बोल के बोले तो जो भी input है उसका output हमेशा integer में रहता. Okay, so everybody good on that?
Okay.
If यहाँ पर अपन लोग weather लिख सकते, if the weather, suppose, okay, हमेशा topmost value top पे रखना. Okay, greatest value. तो अगर अपन लोग greater than पे जा रहे हैं, okay, you need to put the topmost value here, so 110. So अगर if it's not greater than 110, then it can fall back to something else. We will learn about that fallback in a bit. Okay, essentially क्या लिख रहे हैं अपन लोग, if the weather is greater than 110, not 10, if there is greater than 90, अपन लोग यहाँ पर print कर सकते. Let's use an F string, okay, so we can understand that as well. Weather, okay, and then you can put degrees here. Is super hot. Okay, and if I run this, essentially what is the weather in Fahrenheit, and if I put uh, so यहाँ पर greater than लिखे अपन लोग, we will also learn about these operators in a bit, since if statements is mostly about this little conditional. So if I did 92 degrees Fahrenheit is super hot. Circle F. There you go. 96 degrees Fahrenheit is super hot. Okay. Essentially, that's how that works. Okay. That's your if statements. If statement का क्या है बोल के बोले तो this is the first condition, so we can get started with our if. Okay. After if, we use something called an elif. Okay. Elif basically just means stands for else if. In other languages, you will just write else if. Like in Python, you will write elif, essentially meaning else if. It's like a shorthand for else if. Okay. So here, if you write elif, यहाँ पर weather instead of greater than 90, I'm gonna move this up. Okay. So what if the weather is greater than, suppose, 70, okay, we can suppose print f weather, okay, weather is considerably hot. Here I can put my degree symbol. F. So here so now यहाँ पर अब ये check कर रहे हैं अपन लोग कि so now if it's 90 degrees is considerably hot. क्यों बोल के बोले तो this greater than symbol also only checks if it's more than 90. So 90.1 would work. Okay. Here it's more reasonable to use a float. Okay.
Greater than is formula, right?
क्या मतलब
greater than आप क्यों use करें इसमें?
Okay. ग्रेटर देन अपन ये यूज कर रहे हैं क्यों बोल के बोले तो जो वेदर वेरिएबल है, जो यूजर इनपुट कर रहा वेदर जो है, अगर उसकी वैल्यू 90 से ज्यादा है तो उन्हें ये मैसेज देगा.
अच्छा,
फिर अपन चेक कर रहे हैं अगर ये कंडीशन फेल हुआ तो ये कंडीशन पे आए वक्त अगर वेदर 70 से बढ़ के है तो वेदर इज ये मैसेज प्रिंट कर रहे हैं अपन लोग. तो if I rerun and I put like 80 degrees Fahrenheit is considerably hot. Okay. You can quickly parse this. The fastest way to turn a float into an integer is using this method. If you put two slashes and then a 1, it will turn it into, so if I did like 70 point, not 70 point, 90.1, 90 degrees Fahrenheit is super hot. Okay. Essentially, when you write this too, ये इन्हें ground कर देता वो number को, and it will get rid of that. It's known as integer division. So you can divide integers using this, and it will usually always output a whole number. Okay. So you can, तो elif का क्या है बोल के बोले तो आप elif को chain कर सकते हैं. Chain मतलब you can add one after the other. Okay. तो अगर 70 degrees नहीं है, if it's less than 70 degrees, we can rewrite this. So we can say elif weather is greater than let's do 40 degrees. Print weather. Okay. And then you can put your degree symbol. Oops, wrong symbol. Not space. Degree F is cold. Okay. And then यहाँ पर that's where I want to stop chaining my elifs. Okay. because less than this is just 10. Okay, तो यहाँ पर अपन लोग else है. So the way else's work, okay, अपने पास ifs में क्या है बोल के बोले तो if will just try to check a condition, okay. Elif will just check if the if failed and then check its condition. Else का काम क्या है? This is the last thing that it reaches, by the way. अगर उसके ऊपर के पूरे statements अगर fail हुए तो it will land on else. Else अपन लोग क्या करेंगे? Print formatted string weather control command space for me degrees Fahrenheit is super cold. Okay, considerably done. Okay, so if I do something like 12, it will do 12 is super cold. 50 is cold. 80 is considerably hot. 97 is super hot. 90 is considerably hot. 100 is super hot, and you essentially get the idea. Okay, is everyone on par with that? सब जनों को समझ में आया?
जी.
Anyone else have any questions? Anyone have anything that they want to ask or they're confused about? Why do we run the program after every instruction? Okay, so when you write coding in your program, this is always going to be never, ये हमेशा latest version नहीं रहती. तो अपन लोग उसको rerun इसलिए करते क्यों बोल के बोला तो we need to update it to the latest version. Okay, the latest version of the program. Why is the weather? What is your weather in Fahrenheit? 100. 100 is super hot. If I remove this line, it's not going to remove it from there, and the program result is considered. Okay, f string I explained a while ago. Like an f string is essentially एक string रहती है जिसमें formatting रहती है, तो अपन लोग उसमें dynamic values add कर सकते हैं. Okay, essentially अगर एक bracket रहा उसके अंदर एक content रहा तो उसका मतलब ये है कि it fetches the variable some like dynamic value like weather हमेशा same नहीं रहता. Okay, यहाँ पर जहाँ पर जो लिखे वो रहता. The program doesn't automatically know what to write here. तो अपने को इसको ये बोलना रहता कि अगर जो भी weather उन लोग लिखे वो यहाँ पर अपने को लिख के बोलना है कि that is super hot. Understand? Okay, let's continue. So I'm going to explain conditions. I'm going to write all of the conditions in a separate file. Okay, conditional, so they're called conditional statements. I'm going to create a file with that. Okay, let me just make a triple-sided string. Okay, all conditional statements. We have plus plus, not plus plus. Okay, I'm way too into Java here. Equals not equals. Do they have not equals? Not equals 4, 3 not equals 4. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna explain all of these later. Let me just write all of them down. Is not, and then you can kind of flip these, you get the idea. Greater than, less than, greater than, equal to, less than equal to. That I think is about it. Greater than, less than, greater than, equal to, less than, equal to, equals, equals, triple equals, not equals, not is not, not equals. Okay. So there's variations of some of these. Okay. Is always just going to be is. Is not can always also be not is or not is. Okay. These are all ways you can write not is. Why is that giving me the error for? Okay, not is. Not equal to, you can write as not equal to, or yeah, that's essentially how. Greater than, less than, greater than, equal to, less than, equal to. Okay. So let's go from the bottom downward. Okay. I'm going to write a print statement, and you're gonna have to try to predict the value. So 4 equals 5. Okay. Essentially, the way this method works is it checks if two values are the same. So 4 is not equal to 5. So the reason we don't have 1 equals is because we use 1 equals to define variables. And then I get up and plus 1 equals here to compare, then that's just going to be confusing. So we add 2 equal signs so that everything checks out and the language can actually process what we mean when we put these two equals. Okay. So क्या कर रहा है बोल के बोला तो it just checks if the left hand value is equal to the right hand value. False. Okay. But if I put a 4 here, then we get true. Okay. Then there is really no other variation for this. We have not equal, which is just a not, an exclamation point with an equal sign. Well, I could set this to like 12. And it still checks if the other value is a float. Okay. Even if this value is a float, it's still gonna check to see if they're equal. So right now it's saying false because we're checking if they're not equal. And it's gonna output a boolean so that we can use the conditions. Okay. Another variation of this is not double equals. Is it like this? Okay, so I could have. I've tried this before and it always works. Okay, so yeah, not only works with is. Okay. Okay. There's is just the harder method of equal. Okay. So you can't use is with integers though. You can use it with strings. 4. 4 is 4. But that's right now this red just means a warning. You can still use it. It's not recommended, but it's for more complex types. Okay, the is function. Okay, we have is. We also have is not. So if I do is not true, and then we have not is. Never mind. And I don't think this would work either. Not is. No. Yeah. And then we have greater than, less than, greater than, equal to, or less than, equal to. Okay. So we have greater than. Oops. Okay. So essentially this checks if the number on the right is bigger than the number on the left. So the way you know which number it's checking is essentially the arrow would always point towards the smallest. जब भी जहाँ भी arrow point कर रहा है वो वहाँ पर उन्हें check करना, okay? So wherever the bigger side is, that's the number that you're trying to compare, okay? A really easy way to think of this is to see if this number, ये almost funnel के वैसा दिखता, तो अपन लोग ऐसा check कर रहे हैं कि if that number will fit in there and leave gaps, okay, leave any gap, and that is false because जब अपन लोग if we put four circles, if we draw 4 empty circles and then color all 4 of them, अपने पास gap नहीं रहता, okay. Then we also have less than. 4 is also not less than 4. This one is also the same thinking. The number on the right compressed can go inside the number on the left. Okay. Essentially, that's how that is. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone have any questions? Okay, let's continue. So, 4 is less than 4. We also have greater than equal to, okay? So remember how I said जब अपन लोग greater than use करते हैं उन्हें ये करने की कोशिश करता है कि it will try to fit 4 into 4 without going over, while going over some amount. Essentially what this will do is अगर ये complete perfectly fit होता तो भी it's fine, okay? Kind of like a shoe size, okay? Some way to think of this as a shoe size. Some people like to buy an extra shoe size so that their foot can stay free. Some people like to buy something that completely fits. And if you want to do the opposite, you can just flip it always. And these will always be true. But if I put something like 12 here, that's going to be false because 4 is 12 cannot fit inside of 4. But if I do less than, a 4 can still fit inside of a 12. So it's gonna be chill. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So everyone understands what conditional statements are? Everyone is good with conditional statements? Yes? Go ahead.
We understand. Okay. So, so did everyone also understand the if statements? Okay. Okay, so before we leave, I'm gonna try to go over it with another example. This one is like the most prominent example, over 18. Okay, or yeah, over 18. Okay. So suppose there is this is your system prompt. So this is something I like to do sometimes. The way this works is I will write a prompt here, and you will try to code it, and I'm going to also code along with you. Essentially, what we're saying is a tobacco store owner. Okay, Store owner wants you to implement a system that can detect if a person is 18 using some input statements and if else clause to check if they are 18, return a welcome message, return a welcome message, and if they are less than 18, return error, not an error message, but just return over 18 message. Over 18 message. Okay. So essentially अपने को क्या करना है बोल के बोले तो एक टोबैको स्टोर ओनर है जो अपने को एक ऐसा सिस्टम बना बोल रहा जो चेक करता कि अगर कोई 18 years के है यूजिंग इनपुट स्टेटमेंट्स एंड इफ एल्स ओके if they are 18 अगर वो लोग 18 साल है या over you need to return a welcome message okay and अगर less than 18 है you need to return that they need to be over 18 to access the store okay I would like to give everyone around 2 to 3 minutes before I continue. I'll give everyone like 5 minutes to code this. Does everyone understand the prompt? So this is a this is something called this is what I like to call just a practice session basically. And we do so after the 2 3 minutes that I give, we do this thing called a code together. Essentially, I will ask you guys what to put in values, and you have to try to help me finish the prompt. Okay, finish the question that they are asking. You have to show me the code to that I need to write. So you have to write a program. Yes, you have to write a program. Okay, you need to write your own program where it says like essentially आपको खाली this should not be no more than 4 lines. Okay, this should be very easy.
Now we should start.
Yes, you are given time to start. Usually in the methods and operators, it's going to be a lot more hands-on than the variables or the data types. Okay. So it's 9:28 now. I'll give until 9:30 almost. Okay. I feel like that's the perfect amount of time.
So, how many people are done with their coding? Probably not a lot. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so yeah, but first, what we had to do was we had to use an input statement to get someone's age. So here, अपन लोग age लिख के we will write input, okay, and we will write what is your age, okay. And since there is a if-else clause it's telling us to use, so we will say if the int age is less than 18, or we could just cast this part into an int, because your age is supposed to be 18. Okay, so if the age is less than 18, so not equal to, if you're 18, you can access the server, you can access the store. Here you can print you need to be over 18 to go to the tobacco store, okay. And yeah, but you would write else, because every other line, this is every other age. Okay, if age equals 18, else if age equals else, okay, if age greater than 18, okay, yeah, that's good, needs adult supervision for 18, and else, yep, that is perfect. That is exactly the coding that you need. This is a simpler version, but yeah, that's essentially exactly what you need. You need to be, and then here you could print welcome to the store. And when you run it, you can see what is your age. And if I write 18, welcome to the store. If I write 4, this is over 18. Okay, simple as that. Okay, so with that said, that's where I'll